The first monument to give you a woe moment is the entrance itself, an imposing 5-pointed star, which is carved into a reinforced concrete block and symbolizes military honor. The walk from the main road gives you plenty of time to appreciate its magnitude. As you get closer, the austere Soviet war song Holy War, composed in 1941 by Alexander Alexandrov, music, and Vasily Lebedev-Kumak, lyrics, along with an archive propaganda message about Nazi Germany's attack on the Soviet Union, read by Yuri Levitan, who was the primary radio announcer in the Soviet Union during and after World War II, pipe out as you head through the tunnel to the fortress proper. Occasionally, the music and announcement are interrupted by sound effects such as aerial bombardment, machine gun fire and aircraft dive bombing. It sets the scene and puts you in a suitably somber mode for what is to come. A short stroll from the entrance to the center of the complex, which is officially known as Ceremonial Square. There are a few tanks on the left-hand side as you approach the square. Brest Fortress is a 19th century Russian citadel, strategically located on an island surrounded by the Bug River and two branches of the Mukhavets River. During World War II, the Germans launched their attack on the fortress on 22nd of June 1941 and finally captured it 7 days later on the 29th June. It was the first battle of Operation Barbarossa, the code word used by the Nazis for their all-out attack on the Soviet Union. There were approximately 9,000 Soviet troops inside the fortress as well as 300 families of the servicemen. In comparison, the number of Wehrmacht soldiers totaled about 20,000 men, of which the majority were Austrian. Initial shelling began very early on the morning of the 22nd June and the Red Army was taken totally by surprise. Within half an hour of the initial artillery bombardment, German troops were pouring into the fortress and inflicting heavy casualties on the Soviets. So quick was the element of surprise that the Red Army didn't have time to form a united line of fortification and instead were forced to defend isolated pockets of the fortress. Stunned, outnumbered, trapped and short of supplies, including drinking water, the Soviet soldiers still managed to hold out for several more days as well as inflict heavy casualties on the Germans. But, to add misery to woe, they were also cut off from the rest of the Soviet Union and reinforcement were never sent. The Luftwaffe bombed the fortress on the last day of the siege and the Soviets were forced to capitulate. Both the city of Brest and the fortress were eventually liberated by the Red Army in July 1944. Several posthumous Hero of the Soviet Union medals, the highest distinction possible, were awarded for personal or collective feats of bravery during the siege, and the fortress itself was reconstructed during the course of the 1960s and turned into a World War II memorial and place of homage for the Belarusian people. After several years of reconstruction and restoration as well as the building of new monuments, Brest Hero Fortress, as it was renamed, was officially opened on September 25, 1971. More than 600 veterans from the campaign attended the opening ceremony. During the construction, workers found numerous artifacts from the period as well as the remains of many hundreds of soldiers and civilians who perished during the defense of the fortress. According to the fortress's official website, see further reading below, 823 bodies were dug up and reburied with honors within the grounds. Overlooking the memorial burial ground, where the remains of the 823 bodies are now buried, stands a 100-meter-high titanium-coated bayonet obelisk and the eternal flame. Beneath the obelisk and dominating the scene is the gargantuan monument Valor, 30 meters high and 54 meters in width and depicting the head of a Soviet soldier. Although it gives the appearance of being carved out of one almighty large piece of stone, Valor is in fact made up of 200 individual concrete parts and is hollow inside. The bas-relief on the back of the monument portrays notable acts of courage during the defense of the fortress. Nicholas Church, which is dwarfed by Valor, housed the Soldiers' Club prior to the eve of the battle and remained one of the last pockets of resistance during the campaign. It was kept as a memorial for several decades after World War II and eventually returned to the Orthodox Church in 1994, which is when restoration work began. The church holds regular services nowadays and is the oldest place of worship in the city of Brest. Kolmsky Gate, for example, played a key role in the defense of Brest and is still riddled with hundreds of shrapnel and bullet holes on the outside of the building. The first statue you see as you enter Ceremonial Square is Thirst. The fortress's water supply system was destroyed by enemy gunfire on the first day of the invasion, and not only was water needed for drinking, but it was also essential for cooling the guns. Many Red Army soldiers risked and lost their lives running the gauntlet to the nearby river, and Thirst depicts a soldier crawling to the riverbank with a helmet in his hand. It's powerful and dramatic but pales somewhat as soon as you clap eyes on valor.